The Thompson, often referred to as the Thompson SMG, or Tommy gun, was an early SMG designed to be used during World War I as a trench broom, a gun that could clear a trench with only one user. It wasn't finalized until 1919 and wasn't used during World War I. It was used by law enforcement and gangsters during Prohibition and was later adopted by the US military just in the time for the outbreak of World War II. The Thompson was designed by General John T. Thompson. Thompson's original idea was what he called an auto rifle, or as we know it, a semi-automatic rifle. Thompson searched for a way to allow for this to happen, and what he found was a 1915 patent by John Blish. The patent was known as the Blish Lock. In 1916, Thompson created the Auto Ordnance Company with the sole purpose of creating his auto rifle. It was after this that the extent of the Blish Lock was found. The Blish Lock could only operate with small pistol calibers. The only cartridge used by the US military that would work with the Thompson was the 45 automatic Colt pistol, or 45 ACP, the same cartridge used in the M1911A1s of the time. Instead of an auto rifle, Thompson realized that this was perfect for a man-portable automatic trench broom, a gun that could clear the trenches of World War I, seeing as the US had just joined. It was known as the Annihilator and was finalized in 1919, well after the armistice was signed. The Annihilator had taken so long to be designed that now its main market was no longer in need of an SMG, so in 1919 the name of the Annihilator was changed to the Thompson Sub-Machine Gun and was marketed as an anti-bandit gun. The Thompson entered production as the M1921 with a price tag of $200, worth $2,613 today. The M1921 was bought in small numbers by the US Postal Inspection Service to protect from mail robberies. On top of that, the US Marine Corps and some police departments also purchased M1921s. The US Marine Corps used the Thompsons in the Banana Wars and China. It was favored by the US Marine Corps as a counter-ambush measure against Nicaraguan guerrilla forces. The Thompson still had its fair share of complaints due to its weight, inaccuracy, and low penetrative power of the 45 ACP. The early popularity of the Thompson mostly came from the gangsters that used them during Prohibition, the period in American history when alcohol was almost entirely outlawed. Many movies were made about the gangsters, and in all of them you could find a Thompson. Its use by gangsters was what gave it the nickname the Chicago Typewriter. It was the gun that made the 20s raw. A notable use of the Thompson was during the St. Valentine's Massacre. 7 people were lined against the wall and shot with 2 Thompsons and 2 shotguns. The 4 assailants remain unidentified, though they were thought to have been gang members, as 5 of the 7 victims were also gang members. In 1938, the Thompson was adopted by the US military with 2 variants. The M1928A1 was similar to the M1921, but it got rid of the Blish Lock in place for a delayed blowback system. It could use either stick magazines or box magazines, had a recoil brake and cooling fin, and the charging handle was moved from the side to the top. The other variant was the M1A1. The M1A1 was the most numerous of Thompsons, designed with over 1.5 million produced. The M1A1 had the charging handle on the side, a simplified iron sight, and used a straight blowback. Design changes were also made to use less materials during development by changing the foregrip to the better-known rectangular barrel casing. The M1928A1's drum magazines had many issues such as rattling during use, which is why the M1A1 only used stick magazines. Many drum magazines bought by Britain were sent back to the US to exchange with stick magazines. The stick magazines also had complaints due to their low 20-round capacity. To combat this, many soldiers would tape a magazine to the bottom of another magazine to make reloads quicker. In 1940, the 20-round magazine was replaced with a larger 30-round magazine. The M1A1 was adopted in 1942. It was developed as a quicker and easier gun to replace the M1928s. The M1 and N1A1 were issued to World War II scouts, officers such as sergeants, and patrol leaders. In Europe, the M1A1 was used by Spec Ops soldiers such as the British and Canadian commandos and US paratroopers, who favoured it due to its high fire rate, which allowed one man to lay down the same amount of fire as a whole rifle squad. In Sweden, they also created their own variant of the M1921. In the Pacific Theatre, the Thompson was used by many Commonwealth nations, such as Australia and Papua New Guinea. It was favoured in jungle patrols and ambushes, while it was later replaced by the Sten and, in Australia, the Owen gun, due to low supplying. The The US used the Thompson in the Pacific in low numbers due to the low penetrative power of the 45 ACP not being able to penetrate the thick jungle cover. Instead, the BAR, or Browning Automatic Rifle, was used for full auto covering fire. The Thompson began being replaced in 1943 when the M3 and later M3A1 began development, with plans to eventually completely replace the Thompson as an SMG in the hands of US soldiers. The Thompson was used in very low numbers after the war ended. The US still used the Thompson in very limited numbers until the M3A1 eventually completely replaced it. Some smaller countries, such as Israel, were incapable of getting their hands on anything better and had to use many World War II era weapons, such as the Thompson. The Thompson was a great and effective gun, and was one of the very first SMGs to ever made. The Thompson solidified the term submachine gun, and was used in great numbers and to great effect during the Second World War. The Thompson was quickly replaced, but while it was there, it did its job amazingly.